Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're cutting through the mythology of the Wars of the Roses. We're going to dissect the exact dynastic, political, and personal triggers that ignited one of history's most devastating conflicts. Let's dive straight into how an entire kingdom essentially tore itself apart from the inside out.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. War of the Two Roses. 2. The dynastic struggle. 3. A weak and incapable king. 4. The personal spark of war. And finally, 5. The dangers of weak leadership. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. War of the Two Roses. You know, the true gravity of the Wars of the Roses really lies in its intimacy. This wasn't some distant conflict against a foreign enemy. This was a ruthless, deeply personal civil war fought within a single country. We're talking about the immensely powerful Lancaster and York families. Cousins fighting cousins, neighbors turning on neighbors, literally tearing the realm apart for the ultimate prize, the English throne.
And what's wild is that these factions practically invented political branding. The House of Lancaster rallied behind the Red Rose, while the House of York fought under the White Rose. It's almost poetic, isn't it? These competing branches of the royal family took beautiful, delicate flowers and turned them into literal banners of war, flying them on blood-soaked battlefields and in the cutthroat halls of power.
But a conflict of this sheer magnitude, it doesn't just stem from a single issue. It requires a perfect storm. You had a fierce, generations-long rivalry for royal succession slamming headfirst into the absolute weakness of King Henry VI's rule. Add in a bunch of overly ambitious nobles waging their own private wars, plus the massive economic losses over in France from the Hundred Years' War, and well, a boiling point wasn't just likely, it was absolutely inevitable.
Section 2. The dynastic struggle.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the family tree. Both of these powerful families were direct descendants of King Edward III, who reigned way back in the 1300s. Now, King Edward had a lot of children, and honestly, that created a massive legal headache generations later. The House of Lancaster descended from Edward's fourth son, John of Gaunt. Their claim? It was essentially based on possession. They already held the throne through Kings Henry IV, Henry V, and Henry VI. On the flip side, you have the House of York, descending from Edward's second son, Lionel of Antwerp. The Yorks argued, hey, we descend from an older son. They believed their lineage was senior, making their claim legally stronger.
So, that brings us to the ultimate million-dollar question, doesn't it? If both sides have a legal right to the throne, one based on actual possession and recent history, and the other based on strict ancestral seniority, who really deserves the crown? Because both families could point to a totally legitimate legal claim, neither side was ever going to back down. No way. Neither side would accept the other as the true, unquestioned king. This wasn't just a passing disagreement. It was a deep structural flaw that guaranteed the conflict would drag on for decades.
Section 3. A weak and incapable king.
King Henry VI of the House of Lancaster was, to put it bluntly, an incredibly weak leader. And to be fair, the cards were completely stacked against him from the very start. He was crowned king when he was only 9 months old. I mean, imagine that. But as he grew into an adult, he proved to be incredibly gullible, easily influenced by bad advisors who just ran the country to line their own pockets. Under his watch, England lost almost all the hard-won territories in France from the Hundred Years' War. And, to make a tragic situation even worse, Henry suffered from severe mental illness. He eventually suffered a complete breakdown in 1453, becoming totally catatonic, unable to move or even speak.
So here is the crucial takeaway. In the medieval era, a strong king acted as the ultimate referee. They kept all the powerful, ambitious nobles in check. Without a strong leader pulling the strings, a wildly dangerous power vacuum opened up right at the heart of the English government. When the top spot effectively goes empty, even if the king is technically still breathing, all those ambitious lords start looking at the crown. Then they start looking at each other, and they realize there is literally no one left to stop them from taking whatever they want.
Section 4. The personal spark of war.
enter Richard, Duke of York. This is where he takes center stage. When King Henry VI fell sick and became catatonic, Richard was appointed Lord Protector. His job was to temporarily rule the country. So for a brief moment, he finally had the supreme power he felt his royal bloodline deserved. But surprise, the king recovers, and Richard is swiftly stripped of his power. Now, Richard didn't just want to be an advisor sitting on the sidelines. His ambition, mixed with feeling absolutely humiliated and furious, pushed him right over the edge. He didn't just write a strongly worded letter of complaint. No, he raised a literal army and marched straight on London. This explosive escalation led directly to the first official battle of the Wars of the Roses at St. Albans in 1455.
And we really need to understand that taking up arms against the king's forces, that was the ultimate gamble. The stakes of this personal rebellion were astronomically high. If you lost, you didn't just go to prison for a bit. You and your entire bloodline could be disinherited. That meant being legally stripped of the right to inherit anything at all. You'd lose your ancestral lands, your wealth, your noble status, gone forever. It was quite literally an intense game of all or nothing.
Section 5. The Dangers of Weak Leadership.
You know, the Wars of the Roses isn't just some isolated incident in English history. It's actually a recurring historical pattern. Whether you look at ancient Rome, where Praetorian guards just overthrew weak emperors whenever they felt like it, or the late Qing dynasty collapsing under foreign influence, or even modern post-conflict zones dominated by local warlords, the mechanics are exactly the same. Weak central leadership inevitably creates a massive, dangerous void. Factions will always rush in to struggle for dominance, and that leads to prolonged instability and deep suffering for the entire nation.